Do you have any recommendations on how we differentiate the content that we might put on a podcast as opposed to what we might save for our community? Like, we were talking about bringing in specialists on our weekly calls to really have that for the people who are in the membership.
Yeah. Well, there is no difference. Content wants to be free no matter what you do with it. Everything you could ever possibly offer inside of a membership is somewhere free on the internet. What you do is you curate it into a place people can find it easily. Now, the way that podcasting often works, for example, is like I've had Aaron Walker on my podcast. He's a great guy. He's in a mastermind with Dave Ramsey and Dan Miller and all these famous authors and people. And he's a good, amazing entrepreneur and all this stuff. Like I've interviewed him on my podcast, so everyone can listen to that interview. But he just did a training and a Q&A specially for our community yesterday. The differentiation is access. Like they can access you, they can access Joe, they can access the guest, they get to ask them questions. It's a special extra bonus training. Like people even do this. They'll have a guest on their podcast and they'll be like, hey, Tuesday, Bob was here and Bob told you lots of cool things. Well, Bob's going to be in our community on Thursday to answer questions. And if you want to join Bob there, you can go to championsofautism.com and you too can be a member of the community to talk to Bob, right? So like it's a lead into the community, right? I talk about anything on this podcast. I teach direct strategies, just like the blueprint, because if you want to go listen to 890 podcasts or whatever it is now, go for it to find all the information, or go to the Flip Lifestyle Experience, fliplifestyle.com, and join that. And it'll just put you in the membership and you can learn it in order, and get access to all these things. Yeah. People want to hide their stuff, but like there's nothing new under the sun, people. The internet is a big place and you're not a special wallflower snowflake. I'm sorry to tell you that. Your stuff is out there on the internet. In fact, our exact courses have been bootlegged and sold in other websites, right? So it's like, but they can't get me.
That's right.
They can't get right there. They can't get Joe and Stacy either. So that's where you got to go to get that,
Okay, that makes sense.
So when are you going to launch your podcast?
Well, I guess we could probably do it. What's today? Wednesday? We'll probably do it next week. That's probably not the answer you want. You want it here tomorrow, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Why next week? Why can't we record it this week and then work on it next week and get it ready to launch?
All right.
Yeah. Because you and Joe have to record an episode of why you're doing the podcast. The first episode can be that. And you've got a couple guests for your community. Just have them hang out an extra 40, tell them show up 45 minutes early and interview them for the podcast and then do the community call with your guests.
Okay.
But double book it. You've already got 2 guests lined up. You got your first 3 episodes ready to go. You can talk about nutrition on your second episode. And then who's the other guest? What were they?
A parent who's got 4 kiddos on the spectrum.
Perfect. Now, so look what you've done. A solo show with Joe and Stacy to kick it off. 20, 30 minutes, tell your story. You've got an expert comes on. So now this podcast is going to give me access to experts. And then you got a parent, like I'm going to get to hear from real people going through that's it. You've already told everybody what you're going to do. Apple can start indexing you. And then you can say like, yeah, we're going to have a podcast every week forever. Let's go. Let's do this.